Hi, welcome to the Get Strong and Healthy podcast. My name is Anna Clow. Thank you for being here. Today, we have a special guest joining us. We've got Marcia. Marcia is a yoga professional, an executive, and life coach for women. So, thank you for coming on, Marcia. Tell us a little bit about your background, your story, and then we're going to dive into a fun topic today all about managing stress.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for having me. We were going to talk about this stuff a long time ago, but I think the stars are aligning that we're here together now. Actually, it's probably a better time. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be sitting here with you. And before I start, I don't know who hears this or who needs to hear this, but, get yourself a partner in your fitness and your healing, like someone like Anna. You've just been remarkable. And I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you've helped me with in the past. We've only been, it's like 6 months, not even. It's been incredible. So I appreciate it. Yeah. So my story, how did I get here? Gosh, this could be like a 10-hour conversation, and I will keep it as clear and concise as I possibly can. So, I'm going to start with a little bit about my career and how I got here. My career has been very much part of who I am. It's been unique that way. And maybe you feel the same way because you're very young and you're an entrepreneur. So it's like, your life is your work. You embody it. It's everything that you're about. And mine didn't start off that way, truly. I was an artist and a musician. I played cello professionally growing up. That's what everybody thought my path was going to be. It was like Marcia was going to go on to, be in the symphony and play cello the rest of her life. And it just, as much as I loved it, that did not sound exciting to me. I really wanted to get into some kind of design, interior design, fashion design. At the end of the day, my parents kind of made the choice for me on where I would go to school. Now, let's remember this was like 1990, so things were very, very different then. I also recognized I was not an excellent student growing up. I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in second grade, and there weren't a lot of resources. And the biggest obstacle for me getting help really was my father, who just didn't subscribe to that. And I just had to work harder. So I found myself at an all-women's college tucked away in central New York on Cayuga Lake, and it was the best 4 years of my life. I met some extraordinary women. There were 54 women in my class. We started with 90. We graduated with like 54, something around that space. And that's really where I learned to be really great friends with women. Like, we had bonds that were, sure, we messed up, we got on each other's nerves, we got in fights, we did all the things, right? We annoyed each other, yet we loved each other so hard, and everyone was really able to be exactly who they were. Like, there were no cliques, there was no competition. And it was awesome. And growing up, I have one sister. She's 5 years older than me. And then I have a bunch of brothers. So, and all my friends were guys in high school. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but like, I just hung out with guys. So I just didn't really have a lot of strong female relationships. And I was thrown out into the world. I graduated, moved to New York City, started working, and I was like, where are all the ladies? What's happening? Why are we treating each other this way? Like, what is going on? And I found that through my corporate career. And while I had some really amazing, strong women role models when I was at America Online in my 20s, late 20s, there was also this cadence of, you got to do what you got to do to get it done. And I found myself oftentimes behaving in ways and operating in ways that, honestly, I was getting celebrated for. I got promoted. I was a very young executive. I had a beautiful job, a great, everything was glorious. Inside, I was like, this is messed. Like, it didn't feel right to me. I did not like it. I didn't click at the time what was going on, right? I didn't associate it to like women and support and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't, obviously, retrospect is so much clearer. But I knew I felt super empty inside, and that was not for me. I had a couple of breaking points where I just remember sitting in rooms for very long periods of time, debating very seemingly insignificant things to me. And I just was like, look, we're not curing cancer here. Can we like move along? So there was always something inside of me that was like, you're here to do something to help people grow and heal. And it was when I was at AOL that I discovered yoga. I was a super stressed out young mom, and my friend was like, come with me. And I was like, okay. And I did. And the whole time I was there, I'm gonna swear, is this okay? Because I can't, okay. I'm like, I don't know. Hopefully that's fine. Cause it flies out of my mouth very naturally. I was like, what the fuck is going on in this room? People were folding forward. And in my head, I was like, there's no way that this is actually humanly possible, that we're supposed to move our bodies this way. But I felt so good the next day, and I became pretty hooked pretty quickly. And I would go once a week, and I loved it. And it was honestly at the end of a yoga class in the gymnasium at America Online. And I woke up from Shavasana, and I turned to my friend and I looked at her and I was like, I'm quitting. And she was like, all right. Like it was so clear. And I did. I walked away from my corporate career. I started my interior design business. And a year into that journey, my mother passed away at 57 years old. And that actually is 20 years ago this month that she passed. She had fallen at work, hit her head, whole other story, and was mistreated, misdiagnosed, all of the things, because she was having to work through workman's comp doctors, and ultimately pharmaceutical drugs killed my mom. She didn't overdose, she didn't do anything like that. It was just the toxicity level of how long she was being medicated for. They weren't treating certain things that were actually happening inside of her body. And at 57, she passed. And that was a huge pivotal moment in my life where I was like, I'm not going to let this be my story. I'm not going to let this be my family's story. Because when I showed up to my father's home at the time, my parent, where they lived, and I just saw all of the medicine she was taking, I was like, nope. Now, she did have an injury, but she also was not the healthiest woman in the whole wide world. So it was a moment where I was like, I'm not going to let this become my journey forward. So we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. Again, that's a whole other like, you don't typically make those types of decisions when you're in a deep state of grief. Like there's certain things that they tell you not to do after someone dies, and move and buy a new house is one of them. But we did. Charlotte called our name. My sister-in-law was there. We thought it would be great to have the kids grow up together and be around family. But the moment I got there, I was completely like, I want to get out of here. I felt like a fish out of water, but I found an amazing yoga community. And it was when I was down there that I actually purchased a failing yoga studio. I gave up my interior design career, and I started nurturing a community. And it felt to me, once again, like that experience that I had in my college years. And it was like glorious. And it was for men and women, but it was really the bonds amongst the women that I met in Charlotte that really sparked me. I was like, oh, this is that feeling again. As life happens and time goes by, we decided to move back up to Leesburg, Virginia, where we had been previously, and with really no plan, not a plan at all. Neither one of us had jobs. It was during the, big housing crash in 09, 2010. And my husband and I went through bankruptcy during that time. We had two small businesses down in Charlotte, North Carolina, and people just stopped coming, like stopped showing up. We had to close both of them. And by doing that, we then suffered great loss financially. But we came back up and felt more at ease, more at home, and we just knew everything was going to work out. And I'm kind of glossing over a lot of the sticky moments because there were a lot of hard moments throughout this time for sure. But down deep, we both knew that we were going to get through it, right? We understood at that moment, like, they always say money can't buy you happiness. And we got to experience that. We got to experience having an abundance of money because we were very blessed with our time at America Online. And then we had it all stripped away from us. And we just looked around and we were like, well, this is what matters, is what's in front of us, is our health and us, and we're together. I landed myself back doing yoga. I took on running someone else's yoga studio for them and started running teacher training programs. I was all in. And that literally was my life for 10 years. And in my mind, I wanted to recreate that experience that I had in Charlotte, but there was a whole world of like, there was a whole world that I didn't understand, like a whole different mindset, a whole different community, competitiveness. It was tough. I'm just going to leave it at that. It was just really, really tough. There's so many blessings and beautiful things about Loudoun County, Virginia. And then there's a lot of really hard things about Loudoun County, Virginia. And I'm not just saying this because of me. I sit with women all day long and I hear it all day long. And I know that there is this deep desire for women to come together and truly, truly support each other without judgments, without expectations, with understanding, with compassionate listening, and seeing both sides, right? Like just really, and again, I go back to how I learned to be friends with women. We got on each other's nerves, but man, we always came back together again. It was just, I can't explain it. So while I was running the yoga studio, I was training all these men and women, mainly women. Every training would have like one token man. And it was always so fun. I loved it. And it was sometimes kind of sad to me that men weren't really showing up to that space for themselves, truly. But that's a whole other conversation. So, but through my journey with guiding yoga teacher training, I started having to hold space for a lot of people in a coaching way. And at the time, I was not a coach. So I had this deep realization that it was something that came to me very naturally, that I really enjoyed doing it. And I decided that I was going to go to get my coaching certification. And this was right around 2014. And in 2014, I almost lost my life. And I have a very, very vivid memory of my time in the hospital where I kind of in a drunken haze, and I say that because I was like on a cocktail of lots of different medicine, glanced over at my husband and I was like, okay, if I get through this shit, I'm doing more. Like, this is just what was going on inside my head. He was like laying on a chair awkwardly because that's where he slept for the 2 weeks that I was up there. And I just knew that I had to do more with my life. And I had already inside of me planted the seed that I wanted to pursue coaching. So I got out of the hospital and I started getting better. I hired myself a coach. That helped me get super clear. I worked with a woman who just was like, I'm a goals coach. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what this is about, but let's just go through it. And it was but it was good because it held me accountable. It kind of helped me stay true to the things that I was going to get done. And it was a very short engagement. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go take my first coaching course. I did that. I held my first like mini retreat with women. And I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And I started my story with you going all the way back to college, really, as my set point, because I firmly believe that that's where this started for me, was at that college where, and I didn't know, it's not like I knew this, but over the years, I've gained numerous certifications, like too many to discuss right now. Sometimes I try to be a little bit of an overachiever. But one of the things that I do is I read human design charts. And It was when I had my chart read for me, and I was told that my purpose here on Earth, in my chart, was to help people live their best lives here, to find heaven on earth. I was like, yep, that's exactly what I'm supposed to do. And my chart revealed that I do it through the power of storytelling, sharing stories, getting people to open up and share their stories. And that's what my whole job is about. And that's what my whole career is about. I coach people in the executive space, in the life space. I say this all the time. If you've done ICF coaching, which is different than the coaching that you do, although similar skill set, if you have that foundation, you're holding space, you're listening, and you're asking the right questions. You're not giving the solution. You're not telling them what to do. You're literally asking them the questions. You're asking the person to look back at themselves and see where they're maybe getting in their way, or if they're laying down in their excuses or whatever it might be. Yoga asks us to do the same thing. Yoga is all about turning inward, self-study, and understanding yourself. Now, we think yoga is all about handstands, and it's not. It has, like, we can forget about the postures all day long. It's about breathing, it's about clearing the mind, and it's about learning about yourself. So I then have programs that I run for women. I do trainings, I take people on retreats, and every space that I create is small. I curate small groups. I'm not a big group person. And again, naturally within my human design chart, it shows me this, that I am better at small groups. I'm great one-on-one. And also, I graduated with 54 women in my class. No one could hide. I was the only art history major that year. It was me and my professor all year long writing my damn thesis. Like, you talk about accountability. You have to show up.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think my whole journey, oh my gosh, there's so much more. Like, the past 4 years have been another trial for me. I got COVID at my dad. Oh, let's start with my dad dying in 2019. We buried him on my birthday, and then we rolled into COVID. The whole world shut down. I lost connection to my community. I lost my work. I'm a problem solver, so I figured out how to do Zoom pretty quick. And, so many other things happened, but I got COVID at the end of 2020. And there are no coincidences. I got sick with COVID on September 12th of 2020, and my dad died September 12th of 2019. I woke up from COVID, like, feeling better, like, right around my birthday. So you just can't make that stuff up, right? Like, it's like, okay. But from there, COVID affected me in a way that a lot of people aren't talking about, really. We think about long COVID, we think about the side effects of COVID being really about respiratory health and things like that. And there's a large subset of people who have had very similar experiences to me. Lots of digestive interruptions. I was not able to go to the bathroom for months, like months. I was in a chronic state of inflammation and constipation. Doctors didn't know what to do with me. They just kept sending me home, telling me that I had to go to the poop. I'm like, yeah, I know. I have to go. I intuitively knew it was my gallbladder. It took them about 4.5, 5 months to get there. And I had numerous doctor appointments, numerous times in the ER, which all of that, if you know anything about the body, if you know anything about your liver trying to process medicine, you can even see right there that my body was like just in a state of stress from trying to then get the medicine out of my body, like all the morphine drips. I don't even know how many I had, to be honest with you. It's like a blur. And then I finally got my gallbladder out, and it was this huge sense of relief. And then my nephew was shot and killed on July 20th of 2021. So only a couple months after I had my gallbladder out. And that was a huge tragedy to my entire family. So another level of grief just like set in my body. So it wasn't just the grief, but it was also when you have your gallbladder out, please don't think that then that's all of a sudden going to solve all your problems. No. You have to then start to really learn how to support your digestion in a way so you can properly eliminate. Some people start having chronic diarrhea. Mine always turns to constipation, always. And so I found myself once again in this chronic state of even worse than the first time. I've worked with numerous doctors. I mean, I've had to go on a manhunt to find people to like listen to me and work with me and want to get me the right tests. I was in the hospital several more times after that. Like it was just constant. I don't know, it makes me want to cry just even telling you about it. Part of the reason it makes me want to cry is because I know that I'm not abnormal with this. Like I know that this happens just too many people. In fact, a girlfriend of mine was having like crazy shit go on with her skin, and she was running into the same thing. And I referred her to this woman out here that I finally found. And this woman out here her name is Tammy Dixon, just in case anybody wants to know. She goes at it from such a different perspective, and she gets you better. Like she gets you through the chronic state you're in. And I also have a wonderful women's health doctor, Melinda Rhodes in Percival, who is helping me with my hormones and helping me. She's the one who got me started. She was the first one to go, we need to test your poop. We need to test what's going on. Like no, your blood work isn't normal. Like she was the first one to actually go, no, there's something's going on and we got to get to the bottom of it. And then but everyone across the board going through all of this, they were all like, you're handling this, so you've got such a positive attitude. And I really attribute it to my life prepared me for this moment, right? The tools, all the mindset work, my breath work, the meditation, the journaling, the self-care. And I don't mean self-care like I wasn't going getting fancy massages and stuff like that, but just also the self-care of the fact that like I just knew that I was gonna get through it. And listen, there were moments where I was like, is this ever going to end? Like you just kind of feel like it's never going to end. And then typically at those moments, it's when the next breakthrough is coming. If I can offer one thing to someone, when you're feeling like I'm never going to get out of the state, just hold on. Because like not too far off in your futures, the breakthrough is going to come. I don't know if you can relate to that. Yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, it's been really wild. The last thing that I did that was kind of like the icing on the cake was I did GI psychiatry. And this is a new modality and it's brilliant because everyone talks about the brain gut connection. So there's a group of GI doctors that are like, what if we can work through hypnosis and help people get out of this fear that they have? Because that's what it turns into when you have a chronic state of illness or a chronic state of anything, truly, right? The brain will hold on to that as the truth. And then we'll just be sending signals through the body. So even when I started working with you, I was still having a hard time trusting myself to eat, right? And I had to take certain things really, really slow. And gosh, now I don't even think about it. Like, I'm just going to eat. I mean, I think about it in a different way because you're making me track everything, which is fine. But I don't have this fear of it anymore. Whereas I used to be like, okay, well, I'm going to try this. I hope I don't get constipated tomorrow, or I hope I can still go to the bathroom. And it's come with just a lot of trust in myself and support from some key people in my life. Not a lot of people, few key people. Yeah. And not giving up on myself, truly. And I think that's the biggest thing is we give up too soon when everyone's telling us nothing's wrong with us. And it costs money. And that's scary. and I understand that. And I have to remember that I've lost everything once financially, and I was still okay. So the money doesn't matter. I still need to be here,
Yeah.
right? So my mission really as a person and as my career is to help women feel really empowered and trusting themselves. And that's what I do for a living every single day. Every single day of my life, I get to have great conversations with women and some men. I mean, I don't say no to the dudes, right? Because they need it too. Just remember that they have innate wisdom inside.
Marcia, I've told Marcia recently how her sharing her story with me a couple different times from these different perspectives, so cool. I'm learning these new things. And today to hear, even more about your career journey, it is insane. Do you know what the hero's journey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marcia, you got the ultimate hero's journey
Oh,
in every way. It is the
thank
coolest.
you.
And, as hard as, the things life throws at us, like you have turned that into your purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we all of us have the ability to do that.
Yeah. And the like the thing you're talking about, like kind of your brain like believing something's wrong with you,
Mm-hmm.
I deeply resonate with that, as I went through a lot of hormone issues a couple of years ago, and it felt like when I finally stopped like obsessively going down these rabbit holes, learning why everything I'm doing is wrong and what's exactly wrong
Mm-hmm.
with me, and like just started being like, hey, what if I'm not, just so effed up, and my body is going to do what it needs to do to heal, and like what if there isn't, this big thing wrong with me, and I need to, like let go. And like it felt like almost right when I did that is when I really made a big
Yeah.
leap in my healing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's, you know, we can talk about the brain all day long. It's, and our hormones, our hormones control like everything in the body. And no one ever wants to talk to us about hormones. Like I think about what I've learned about everything in the past for like truly, I have had like a master class. uh, I don't know, would it be biology would be the science or like anatomy? It's like I knew a lot, but like the past 4 years have been just like a master class on how hormones, emotions, and the brain affect everything, every piece of the puzzle. And boy, I feel so lucky. It wasn't easy, but I feel so lucky that I know what I know now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great segue into what we're talking about
Yeah.
today. We're talking wellness and fitness, kind of how to balance stress and then rest and recovery. And, Marcia and I, this perfectly kind of blends our worlds, because we're talking about how the fitness world oftentimes takes things too extreme. They begin to burn themselves out. They're doing too much and they're wondering why they're not seeing progress. It's this thing where, oh, if I do more, I can get better results and I can, keep, progressing. Whereas that's not always the case. And then in Marcia's world, we're talking about how, sometimes, maybe yoga ladies, they'll kind of forget to resistance train and like
Yes.
do, these kind of more like intense things that, are also great for us. So let's talk a little bit about how we came upon this topic. Really
Yeah.
was Marcia asked me my thoughts on 75 hard. And I was like, ooh, I love this question because it's a big popular program that a lot of people do. And if you don't know what it is, 75 hard is a challenge where for 75 days you do, I believe it's like what, like 5 things.
I think it's more than that. I think it's drink a gallon of water, which hold on, let's just start there.
Yeah.
That's intense. Read for 10 minutes a day, 2 45-minute workouts. One has to be inside, one has to be outside. No alcohol. You have to follow a diet. You have to post a progress picture
Every day.
every day. And there might be one more thing. I think you have to post on social media. I think they like that's part of the accountability. You have to
Yeah.
post your little, so 8 things.
Dang. Yeah. And one of the workouts like has to be outside.
Has to be outside.
And yeah.
Oh, no. 5-minute cold shower every morning to start your day.
Oh, is that a new one that they added?
So there's 9 things.
Dang. Okay. That's
Yeah.
insane. So yeah, don't
It's
even
in,
like we could dive into why all these different things are maybe not, like, okay, starting for a gallon of water. Not
yes.
everyone should be drinking a gallon of
No.
water.
No.
For some people, that's going to be flushing their minerals out. And
Yes.
it's not going to be a good thing.
Yes.
So,
I want to share something about that.
yeah.
My dad actually had to go to the hospital. Like this was years ago, because somewhere they were like, drink a gallon of water. It was like he stressed his kidneys out. Like I can't even remember exactly what happened. I'm not gonna say he went to kidney failure or anything like that, but he was in so much pain. And they're like, what do you like? You're stressing your kidneys out. And I can't remember, they did some test or whatever, but he literally like for like 2 weeks started drinking a gallon of water every day. And like his body couldn't handle it.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. I
I very
mean,
much remember that.
yeah, it's totally like a blanket prescription where like some
Mhm.
people, sure, super active, whatever, that's great. But like
Yeah.
also others, it's really comes back to the idea that everything you're doing should be individualized to you, right? Like
Yeah.
nothing really, obviously there's general frameworks and concepts that we all can benefit from, but really looking individually at where a client is at and like then we set specific protocols for that client that's going to best help them. So basically 75 hard is a discipline challenge. It's like a mental fortitude challenge. And people kind of think that, oh, it's like a fitness program. I'm going to get in the best shape of my life. I'm going to get fit. Whereas you're probably going to dysregulate yourself. You're probably going to overtrain your body, stress the heck out of your body, maybe screw with your hormones, who knows? So that's kind of where we don't recommend it. If your goal is to optimize your fitness, is to optimize your progress, is you need to take an individualized approach. And for 95% of people, that sort of plan with no rest is not a good idea. And some people like go, kind of go around it with, oh, I'm going to just do like a 45-minute yoga and, this and that. But like some people, they are doing like actual workouts twice a day, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's going to get to be too much.
Yeah. Listen, even 45 minutes of yoga is still
Yeah, it's still hard. Yeah.
hard. So I love everything you said, dysregulated nervous system, and that I made some notes here. So it's interesting because one of the things that I work on with people and I guide people through is somatics, which is all about regulating our nervous system. And side note, like if you have a dysregulated nervous system, there's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything wrong. We all have it to a certain extent because of the life that we live in. So please don't ever take that as oh, something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
No, it's just, it happens. And when we stay turned on too much, and that's what this program kind of promotes, we disconnect from the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest side. That also is where we have a tendency, and the vagus nerve, where we have a tendency to like get a lot of trauma and stored emotions inside of our bodies, and which will, if you're not seeing progress and you're working really, 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 really hard, it's because your body's just holding on to inflammation and emotions and things like that. And I'm going to say before we get going, like the wellness world will make us feel like we need to be sitting around and drinking yogi tea and like eating cinnamon bark and praying to Ganesh all day long. And that's just not, and manifesting, like we can, let's all just take a step back, right? Like well, one of my other big goals, and I kind of feel this about you, and maybe you've never really thought about this way. Like, I just want to make all of this approachable to people too, because they're tools to support our life. They're not meant to be this like untouchable weird thing. And what happens, I think, with something like 75 Hard, and first of all, this is like, these men and women who created this program are successful business people, right? So people, what happens, I think, is we look at them, they're like, well, if they did it, then this is going to work for me too. And I remember very well, I have a doTERRA business. I don't do much with it anymore, but when I was in the height of it, they used to say success leaves clues, almost so that you're always looking at the people going, oh, if I do what they do, then I'm going to have that success too. And I feel like sometimes that's what happens with this program is, well, the creator, and again, no disrespect to Andy Frisella and Emily, I don't know who he partnered with to do this, but I know he's one of the names behind it. It might have worked for him and a few people, like you just said, and therefore they turned it into a program. And I'm big on, one prescription does not fit everybody. Like, if you even taking supplements, which are medicines, if you take an antibiotic, everyone's going to respond differently to them, right? Everyone needs a customized approach. And the truth is, if we're really paying attention to our wellness, we're going to know. And this is, again, one of the other things that part of the reason I hired you is because I watched you for a little while to see, like, because I'm like, who do I want to work with? Who's going to help me through this? And I watch you so naturally go, yeah, I haven't lifted for 3 weeks because I've been doing this instead, right? This natural, like, oh, I don't want to journal this morning. I don't want to read for 10 minutes today. That's your body going, oh, okay, I need a break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So dysregulated nervous system, what's so interesting for me is all the stuff that I teach, because it's so slow and it's so introspective. Oftentimes people don't think it's doing anything for them. And it's hard to convince someone that's going. And when they see the, I don't know what we want to call them, the gurus out there in social media land with the big platform and the big numbers and the big programs. And I'm telling everybody to slow down. It seems confusing.
Mhm.
It seems very confusing, right?
Yeah. And like sometimes even clients will be in the gym with me working out and they're like, rushing through rest, trying to feel like they're like sweating and like burning. And it's like, hey, like actually resting here is going to help us be even stronger and get better results. And it doesn't always, a good workout doesn't always mean like, like I'm
Yeah.
dying. Sometimes
Yeah.
yes, that's the goal, but lifting is not always like that.
Yeah.
And in my space, like a lot of my like peers and like people in my mastermind and fellow coaches in the fitness world are bodybuilders. And bodybuilding, I think I look at it as it's freaking cool. It's not for me.
Yeah.
It's for some people. And a lot of the times people go into it and it's, they find out it's not for them. That's what most people go into it with.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of the general public doesn't have the ability to, bring nuance and discernment to when they're viewing these bodybuilders they're doing and realizing it's not healthy, not necessarily healthy. A lot of the times when you're pushing yourself to an extreme in terms of an athletic sense, that's actually not health. And so like knowing that they're pursuing a very different goal than maybe what you personally value and have for yourself. And so people, will think that, oh, I just need to like train harder, train longer, always, be like dieting and doing this and that. And like, it's been hard for me to over time in my journey, like recognize like living that way is what pushed me into being so dysregulated, having bunch of hormone issues. And so the answer for me was just like what you're talking about is like simply coming back to yourself and your inner knowing. And
Yes.
like, yeah, listening to yourself and your intuition. And so, and yeah, this program, doesn't, really
It
promote it.
doesn't allow space for that. And we live in a world where most of us have some kind of addiction. And I'm not saying to alcohol but we all have the ability to become addicted to something. And to me, what that forms is an addiction. Right. And then when that 75th day is over and your body is so exhausted because you've not listened, you fall off the wagon or you get back on a different wagon. You just replace it with a different hustle. It kind of reminds me of hustle culture in the world of working, right? Do more big, everything is like bigger, better, more, go faster. The more I can do, the more I'll be rewarded. And an addiction that we don't talk about being okay is our addiction to work
And stress.
and stress. Yes. Cortisol is terrible for the body, right? Look, stress was put there to protect us from threats of bears. Like we were supposed to go, oh shit, I gotta run. Not the stress that we constantly are living under. And then just our environment. Like there's certain environmental stressors we can't change, right? We can't fix it. So it's interesting because you're talking about an extreme on the fitness side. And as I've been listening to you, like I can think of all the extremes on the wellness and spiritual side. Practice yoga every damn day. That hashtag messed the world of yoga up, right? Instagram challenges with people doing poses in funky places and our obsession with extreme back bends and extreme handstands and sitting with our legs in lotus pose and meditating every single day, like all of these things takes it so out of balance. And it's interesting. I'm leading a group of women right now through teacher training. And I will toot my own horn on this. I was going to say not to toot my own horn. I'm like, no, but I'm going to. They're like, how come no one else is talking about this? I said, because no one has been doing this as long as I have been doing this. I've been doing this for a very long time. I'm not no one else. There's plenty of teachers out there. And you can find the teachers, the spiritual wellness teachers who haven't reached such a level of success that their PR team is now scripting them and promoting the program and promoting the thing, because that's how they keep the money rolling into their pockets. The second we walk away from that and go, no, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to empower you to help yourself. People get scared of that shit. I mean, do you find that with sometimes, I mean, I guess I can only speak to this from how I witness you coach me. So I can only imagine that you coach everyone the same way. I also, and this is not to sound critical of anybody else that you coach, but I also know that I come with a very different set of awarenesses and education. And I still need someone outside of me to like kind of help me see things. But what my curiosity is, because I know the resistance that I get sometimes from people, like, do you find the resistance when people are like, no, just tell me what to do? And you're like, well, no, I'm not going to
All
just
the
tell
time.
you what to do.
It's my favorite when clients will come to me and say, I just need you to tell me what to do. And I go, and then I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's unpack this a little bit. Let's talk about it. And yeah, I do. I want to support. I want to give you some tools, but also I want to help guide you to come up with them for yourself for many reasons.
Right.
Because first off, as humans, we crave autonomy. That's very important to all of us. And then secondly, when you come up with your own ideas, you're more likely to do it. Also,
Yes.
you know your life better. I'm not going to know anyone's life better than you know your own. So
Yep.
that's one thing. And then like it'll be a couple weeks later and then they'll be like, no, actually I want to do it this way. And they're like taking kind of more of like the reins back. And I'm like, see,
Yep.
Even though you feel like you want me to tell you everything,
No.
no, it's rather, yeah.
Well, so what you just said is why I'm challenged by the 75 Hard program. And
Yeah.
why I think people end up holding on to it forever, because then they didn't make the choices on their own of which things to participate in,
Yeah.
which
And
habits they wanted to stack. And my program, when I first started running it, was called Makeshift Happen. It's not very original, but I love it. I know everybody says it. It's fine. And some people are like, make shit happen. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna make shit. But there was a woman that was part of it, and she was like, well, we need to tell them what to do, like what their outcomes are going to be and how. I'm like, no, no, because then I'm not going to tell anybody. No way. But that's what we think we want, because we are so stressed that our brain isn't able to sit down and actually tap into theta and beta waves. Or is it the delta and theta waves? Anyway, it's one of those waves. I might have just said that wrong, but where we have our creative solutioning. That's why downtime is important, quiet, mindfulness. I'm not even going to say meditation, because meditation, ice bath, dream, working out, spinning, running, going can actually be quite detrimental to a dysregulated nervous system, particularly if you have any type of freeze patterns in your life. You don't want to be doing those things. You don't want to meditate and start controlling your mind, because that's what meditation is. You also don't want to practice like controlled breath. You just want to breathe. So I'm a breath work coach. I'm a somatic. I know how to do somatics with people. There's like lots of nuances and differences. And like mindfulness is us, you and I sitting here talking right now. We're being mindful with each other. We're talking to each other. I'm like taking notes down, like we're paying attention to each other. This is like a mindfulness practice right here. We're not like on our phones and being distracted. We don't have music playing. We're just like in it. And we have so overcomplicated all of this stuff. And then we try to sit and meditate. Well, the person who has anxiety and has panic isn't going to be able to meditate. It's going to make them feel more anxious. It's going to make them feel more panicky.
yeah.
Right? The person who's been, you said something about working out to the point that you could see what like you did to your like dysregulating your nervous system. I did the same thing with yoga. I subscribe to like, let's practice every single day and let's do this all the time. Anything good, I say this all the time, any good habit can turn bad if it's out of balance.
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially if anyone here is a business owner, you can work all day long.
Yes.
You have to stop yourself and you have to learn how
Yes.
to do that and
Yes.
how to somehow turn off, because our lists, I'm sure you can probably relate, it feels like they grow faster than we can execute. We have all these
Yes.
ideas and it can be so hard to learn. It's like learning how to manage yourself. And this is something I wanted to, bring it back to the fitness, wellness side of things, is when you go on a program like this, like taking 75 hard, or really anything where it's just, I do this and that's what I leave it at, is it's almost like a cop out or
Yeah.
bypassing the learning skills piece of this. Is there's so many like mental skills that come into play with learning how to work out when it's not like, oh, I have to. Like there's so many like little things that we could talk about, where learning how to eat without the rules, learning how to do this because it's out of your values, because you have this built the skills of doing the thing. And also like learning how to not feel shame all the time when you like
Yes.
do something out of your plan,
Yes.
off track, quote unquote, is like
Yes.
a huge skill in itself.
Well, so I think and again, 75 Hard is the example. There's a million examples out there.
Yeah.
Like this, right? Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers. I mean, the list could go on, and it's fine. They serve a purpose for a certain segment of the world. What happens for me when I watch some of my friends participate in 75 Hard, if they mess one thing up on one day, they're like, failed, got to start over again. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Because that's literally what the program tells you
Tells them to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, if that was the case, I wouldn't be how far along I am right now. Because there literally have been days where I'm like, I'm supposed to lift today and I'm not doing it because my body is freaking exhausted. Or what's going to serve me best is actually to go take a walk with my husband or mow my yard or do something different. Like that rigidity, like everyone needs structure in their life. We all do. Humans crave it. Like we've got to have, but oh, you know what? Beachbody. Like, let's talk about Beachbody. It's the same thing, right? It's that you work out every single day, you drink these shakes, you subscribe to the, Beachbody, right? Yeah, it's the same thing.
And that's what most fitness programs actually are. And that is
Yes.
why most people fail.
Fail.
Yeah,
So,
it lacks individuality and it's rules.
yes. So I am a big fan of Chalene Johnson. She's older than me. I always love following fitness women older than me because it reminds me that like I don't have to get old, right? It's great. And hopefully I can be an inspiration to those younger than me too. Anyway, she talks about because she did Turbo Fire and Turbo Kick and Pio and like a bunch of things. And they were all part of the Beachbody suite of products. And she talks about how damaging that was to her body doing it. She's like, I was up there telling everybody to do it and I was suffering inside. Like she talks very, very openly about it. And I love it because I just wish more people would pay attention to those types of things. Do it for a period of time if that's what you need to kickstart yourself. And while you're doing it, make it your own. I guess it's like I even, the way I teach people to learn to teach yoga is I'm not going to tell you how to teach this class. And sometimes people get really frustrated in the beginning. I tell them the key elements. I teach them intellectual sequencing from a energetic and an anatomical perspective, but I don't create sequences for these people. I make them do it on their own. Why? Well, if I practice, then I'm going to know what to teach tomorrow. If I'm doing it, if I'm the one writing it down or if I'm practicing it, then I know exactly what I'm going to teach my class. I know how it feels in my body. I know what words to say. I know what muscle, even if you don't know the exact muscles, you know where in the body to draw someone's attention to. But if I'm like here, and this is a real problem in the yoga industry. I don't know if we're talking about it from a fitness perspective, but in the yoga industry, a lot of teacher trainings, the lead teacher's like, here is your sequence, memorize it and go. Like, that's it. So a lot of teachers out there are just doing things and they're just regurgitating the same old shit from 1994. And the thing is we've evolved as a human race. We know more now about the body. And we can talk about this like across the board, right? Like people are finally talking about women going through menopause and hormones and all of the things. People are finally talking about the importance of, eating protein and fiber. Like my daughter, she's about you guys are all about the same age. She's 22 and she's like I'm like, where did you even get this from? Like she's talking to me about eating protein and I'm like, what? So I love it, right? Like, because the more we know, the better we are. So why are we still trying to put people inside of boxes? And that box is going to stress you out even more. And so this whole conversation kind of migrated into stress. And you can find stress on both sides in the fitness world and in the wellness world if you're trying to follow a prescription. Somebody says, go do this, and that's all you do.
Yeah. And in the fitness world, like as a coach, I think sometimes coaches are like, what do you mean I can't prescribe my client this, tell them to do this. This is what's going to be best for them. And there's ways to do it where I did this yesterday, talking with a client, like, hey, I would love to see some more fruits and vegetables. What do you think could be a good goal for you to start, in terms of like maybe a target that we set here, or like the way that you want to think about it, because like maybe the way that my client comes up with it makes more sense to her than me giving her
Totally.
certain target.
It's that actually, I love that you just brought that up, because one of the things that's been really hard for me was because of how sick I was, I had to do low FODMAP. But then I was like on some kind of weird format of low FODMAP, because even low FODMAP messed me up. Like I could barely eat anything. And I think you probably remember this from when we first started working together, and then my GI psych was like, I just want you to eat, just eat whatever. So like that, because I had to literally, because it was so restrictive. And this is, again, if we want to compare what I'm talking about, just to get my body well, I had to be so restrictive, but then the mind holds on to that and it doesn't want to let it go. So if you are participating in some kind of program that's very restrictive and prescriptive, your mind isn't going to want to let go of that. Or when it does, you're just going to start going back into your negative self-talk. And then you're going to just start bringing back all your old habits, because you're going to feel like a failure because you didn't create anything for yourself. And that's why I really needed the help to get my mind. I was scared to eat a banana because bananas used to, I couldn't even eat like 2 bites of banana.
Yeah.
It was like horrible for me. So I had this thought in my head that kept me in this cycle, and you really have to break yourself out of it. And that's why my second job out of college, I was working at Time Life Medical, and we were producing VHS cassettes. It's kind of funny to say that, videos on living illnesses that you could survive from. So like breast cancer, prostate cancer, like there were all these things. I can't remember, but we worked with C. Everett Koop, and he was the Surgeon General at the time. And his whole thing was like everything in moderation. Right. And I think we've forgotten about that. We literally have forgotten about that as a philosophy. It's like these extreme go all in.
Don't even get me started. I'll say one little thing on the nutrition side of things, but Marcia, can we turn this into a part 2? I forgot to tell you, I've got to cut off.
Yeah.
So bad.
That's
But
okay.
Okay, I want to do a part 2 and about this amazing conversation. But so in the nutrition world, it's wild especially on social media. Okay, what gets the attention is the very what's the word? Controversial opinions, the very black and white polarizing things that people say.
Yes.
Don't eat this, okay? And like that's what has become this narrative, is like you got to go carnivore and like don't eat veggies, but like don't eat carbs, but actually no, eat honey, and fruit is bad, but we're gonna eat fruit again. Like what? Okay. And so that all right there is, and then people get shit for talking about you can eat the things that are maybe a little bit more indulgent, and then that gets taken out of context, whereas like, hey, eat those things, like sure, but I care more that you're not stressing about what you're eating. We want to look at moderation. We want to look at really making sure you have a balanced, nutritious approach to your nutrition, and that can include the quote unquote less nutritious things, and it doesn't have to have a negative impact on you. And people forget that, oh, they're hearing about this study, and that study is done on someone consuming these copious amounts of this thing. And it's like, there's a certain dose of things that is completely, whatever. And so it's just this whole rabbit hole of, very, very polarizing perspectives. And we have to, bring nuance to these conversations, which I love that that's what we're doing today. And we can finish out. I want to talk more about stress.
Yes.
Part 2, and we'll put it together. But thank you so much, Marcia, for coming on. This was so amazing.
Yeah.
And then
awesome.